Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast as always. And we are looking at the fun Tuesday NBA slate that we've been waiting for here with the NBA Cup in full swing. Interestingly, point differential really isn't going to matter. It's mostly going to be head-to-head stuff today, so not too much to worry about in the sense that teams are going to try to elongate these games to make sure that they have the correct point differential. It's just teams that need to win. So we'll be taking a look at how that impacts best bets in this video. Also have play of props up in a separate episode, so make sure to subscribe to that page and don't miss any of the action. We're bringing you the rest of this NBA season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first best bet of the day here.
Yeah, there's two I really like here. Yesterday didn't go with the instinct, which was just like Bulls -4, Wolves -4 at the opening line. So I've hit these both early. It starts with Bucks -4. It's actually -3.5 at the moment. Milwaukee at Detroit, like you said, they don't need to win by margin. They just need to win this group. It's basically a 1-point differential. And the Bucks are on basically a week of rest. If you don't count the Washington Wizards as a real team, that's the only game they've played in a week. And so Giannis actually rested the game before that. As we remember, they still beat the Heat. And sometimes you get the lift where the other guys, are forced to carry more of a load without their star. We talk about stars out, bets up. And then there's kind of a lift after that where now they feel more empowered. They feel like they're settling into their roles. And I mean, the Bucks were getting it right before that too. I mean, they have won 6 straight, including a somewhat lucky win against Houston that again kind of gave them a lift, but 8 of their last 9, they're 9th in defensive and net rating in that span, 4th in effective field goal percentage, as they're getting that kind of old Bucks ball back, right? Where you have Giannis putting pressure on the defense and then you have good shooters around him. And Gary Trent, AJ Green, they're stepping into their roles off the bench more often. And Dame has been able to get his. So, I mean, we know what happened last time these teams met. Giannis 59-14. They win without Dame. Win by 7. Like the Bucks haven't been covering, but this is a small spread. Like I don't understand why it's so small in any way. Like the Pistons were an average team for a while. I'd say now they are decidedly below average. They're 21st in defensive and net rating last 7. So pretty much the opposite trend here as the Bucks. And you could say, well, Cade hasn't been in there. He is one of the least efficient players in basketball offensively. 5 turnovers a game, shooting 43%. That he's not going to help. Their defense should have been better with him out. So I don't understand that. And they still had a really high turnover rate without Cade. So I don't see him coming back as a huge boon here. The Bucks, I guess this trend will stop eventually, but 11 straight wins in Detroit. They've won something like 18 of their last 19 against this team. It is a total big brother, little brother. It's been 6 years since they lost to Detroit. And are they going to do it now in the NBA Cup with this on the line, remembering the lesson of last year when the young Pacers caught them with a surprise left, right? I don't think so. I think Giannis is going to come in here and just rub these dudes' face in the dirt.
That's fair. I tend to agree. I think there's been a little bit of inflation is not the word I'm looking for, but it's kind of describes with Detroit just a little bit of playing a little bit above their pay grade at times. I do think they're a legitimate defensive squad when they hone in and have all their guys, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Dame and Giannis are going to go clean off, and I'll talk about some Brolo stuff as well. Yeah, I seem to just like a ton of Bucks, and for whatever reason didn't just veer directly towards them winning, but I do like a lot of their player props, so I can totally to buy into that. But let me go to the Houston-Sacramento game. I really like the look of this game. I'm taking an over at 226. I'm kind of almost like, what am I missing here? I really think this should be 230, and there's a couple of reasons. One, Keon Ellis is out of the starting lineup. I'm a humongous Keon Ellis stan for his defense. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. He's got the best on-off defensive rating of anybody that's actually getting minutes on this Kings team this season. And yet Mike Brown has decided to remove him from the starting lineup to bring in Malik Monk to potentially sort of clear up some of the muckiness that's kind of come about at times with D Fox and DDR. And as they're still trying to put that offense together. Never thought it would work that well, to be honest, but we press forward and see how it's going to turn out. For Monk, actually got the second worst defensive rating on the court. So you're subbing out your best perimeter defender for the guy who's not your best perimeter defender. We probably won't be seeing much Huerta. I believe he's out as well in this one. So yeah, that's going to be your sort of guard rotation right there. Then, with DDR, that's the other thing. He's actually impacted the defense more than the offense and hurt it, to be honest. With him, he's got the worst individual on-off court defensive rating. When he's out there, the Kings have the worst defensive rating that they hold with any of the five that they could put out there. And when he has been on the court, he's still helping their offense. I mean, with him on the season, they're at 228 in terms of their game averages. Without him, they're at 215. But Mike Brown also did say in the news after their last game, another bad loss, that he was really looking for them to pick up the tempo on offense. And that was, I guess, one of the benefits of being up at like 11 p.m. on the West Coast is I actually get to see a post-game presser for the Kings, and there's nothing else on TV, so I got it on while I'm doing NBA research. And that was what he was very clear about, was that the tempo needs to be picked up for them, as they could be playing a bit faster, for sure. Houston, however, is playing super fast. They're playing 10th fastest this season. And what I really see with Houston this year is, like, they're not passing at all, so they're definitely a jump shot-oriented team. But that's fine against this Kings defense, which has not been a good perimeter defense, has not been a good defensive or a spot up defense, I should say. So a lot of guys who are coming off the spot up are going to be able to find their stuff. And for the Kings, while they're not making the extra pass, there still is a level of passing around the perimeter, which would be nice to see them get it down low a little bit more. But Şengün not having the best season either way. I still like the offense in this. I like both teams to fast break a bunch and to score from the perimeter and with the jump shots as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the Kings play with DDR. Totally see where your head's at there. I mean, sometimes you worry about the Rockets just being so good defensively, playing ahead of over their skis offensively. But I mean, when you have skilled bigs on both sides here, Şengün and Sabonis, like, yeah, both offenses should be humming. I don't think either one has good answers for what the other team's going to do. So I definitely lean towards over when I looked at it at first. But yeah, again, I'm going 76ers and Bucks money line parlay, the two downtrodden veteran teams that, nobody would touch a couple weeks ago. And you combine them together in a parlay, it's between plus 140, plus 150. I've kept coming back to it every time the Bucks dip a little bit. Or you can take Sixers on the spread, also hitting this Maxey for 25 points with the Sixers money line as kind of a hedge, because that again gets you to like plus 140. And I don't see how they're gonna win any game without Maxey getting 25 at this point, given the situation. But look, he's only been at full go for 2 games for the 76ers this iteration in terms of having something around him. And that was an overtime loss against Houston, top team in the West for sure, and a pretty comfortable win against the Detroit Pistons. So again, part of the fade there in Detroit. But yeah, Maxey playing 40 minutes a game, clearly over the hamstring injury, 33.5 points, 8 assists. He's averaged 31.5 with a 126 rating against the Hornets. But I mean, the key here is the Hornets don't have anybody at the moment that really scares you. I mean, no LaMelo for weeks now. Also no Trey Mann, Miles Bridges, or Grant Williams. So who is going to be guarding Maxey? I mean, Josh Green, Cody Martin, pretty athletic dudes, but like, let's just hunt Micic, who's going to be out there by necessity, right? Trying to keep this offense afloat. And then an extremely experienced starting front court in Salon and Diabate, guys with like 30 NBA games combined between them. They're not going to be able to handle Maxey and perhaps McCain if he gets going off the bench. And then the offense for Charlotte, we're just looking at 2-game samples for both these teams because that's when they lost LaMelo. They were able to hang with New York at the end of the Knicks 5-game road trip that like they had to take other teams way more seriously out west, and they were like, okay, whatever, Charlotte. And they got Atlanta on a back-to-back, again, hung with them within the spread here, but it's like all Brandon Miller on offense, right? 38% usage, just great games. Then now, meet the older version of yourself who is probably going to lock you up in Paul George. So I like the Sixers all around here. I think it's time for them. You look at the cup, they're both out of it, obviously, but it's like, it's time to go here in the regular season, time to move on maybe without Joel Embiid. Like, we don't know if we can count on him. Sixers start to find a little bit more of an identity with Maxey as the guy and start to win a few games, get out of this basement.
You really just made me realize that we should be taking Brandon Miller over turnovers. It's really juiced all the way down to the over. But yeah, I was watching that Knicks game going like, oh man, if Brandon Miller's running my offense, I am in trouble, which was the University of Alabama problem. Like he was a great individual talent. But when it's like, all right, we need a guy with the ball in his hands, control the offense, get a good shot for this team, it ain't Brandon Miller. He's a pure scorer. He's just a really bad passer right now, and he's really bad out of the double team. And like I said, if he's the guy running your offense, which he was, and it should be Micic a little bit, my precious Micic, who I've always hit correctly, but is just such a sieve on defense that you can't play him in the NBA real minutes, and that's what he's going to get in this game as the only dude that you trust to run the offense. I mean, it was gross to watch that offense when Micic was on the bench. It was like, wow, I can't believe how badly an NBA team needs Micic to run its offense right now, and that's where the Hornets are at. Another fine tank job by that pathetic franchise. All right, I'm going with a parlay on the back end of this best bets video, to the somewhat of the chagrin of Nate, because there are so many good games out tonight, but I love so many player props as well that I wanted to make sure I got some in here as well, because we all love parlays. So let's do a simple one with 3 players. Lillard 20 plus points, Cat 10 plus boards, Scotty Barnes 8 plus boards, and we both love Scotty Barnes for sure. So I'm glad to see we're riding the Scotty Barnes train still. Let's start with Lillard. Love the way that this defense does not defend pick and roll ball handlers, does not defend point guards, doesn't defend Dame Lillard style players well at all, and hasn't since last season. Cade is still your de facto point guard. Well, he's a point guard. He's a very good point guard as far as like playmaking being bigger than others, but on defense, do not trust him at all. Like as bad as he's been at times with his efficiency, his defense is just not good. 4th most points per game to the pick and roll ball handler that they allow. They're 9th best limiting 3-point attempts, Nate, but they are 21st versus 3-point makes, because they're in the bottom 6 in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. They are not defending the 3-point shot well. Teams are just also getting a good amount of mid-range against them. But you look at the way he played against them last season, over in 3 of 4 versus them, 32.3 points per game in 35 minutes. Failed to go over at the end of the season when the Bucks didn't really need that game the way that the Pistons did, and didn't really seem like they cared that much. Ended up winning by like 8. But he's actually also over in his last 3 games, so I really like the sort of uptick in Dame's performance since he's come back from injury in those last 3. And if you look at the recent similar player types to go off against this team, LaMelo had 35, Kobe White had 25, Jordan Poole had 22, Tyler Hero had 40. That's all in the last like 10 days of basketball. So you can get off on this team against this team if you are able to get into the lane, or you're obviously an above the break shooter. And we know Dame is that. This team is bad against above the break threes as well. So as good as they are against the 3, not above the break. Cat, I don't need to do this too long. I mean, the man is averaging 13 rebounds on 22 rebound chances per game, and his number is at 11.5 because he's playing the Orlando Magic, who are a top 5 rebounding team, no question. Really tough to rebound on them. I do not care. Would you be afraid of Jokic 11.5 rebounds against the Magic? No, you would not. And that's where I put Cat right now, who is second in the league after he overtook Domas and is now just behind Jokic for most rebounds in the league. Still holding on to a ticket for 150 to 1 for that, so could win a nice little sum at the end of the season if that crazy thing happens. And while this team is number 1 limiting center rebounds, doesn't really matter to me. Like I said, I think that he's still going to get in there and be a better rebounder than Goga Batadze and Wendell Carter Jr., who are both playing at the same time. Not scared of it. So Scotty Barnes, also just going to continue. I could not love this bet more tonight for him to get over the 8.5 rebounds as the core line. I took it at 8 plus just for the sake of this parlay. He's over in 3 of his last 4. He's over in all 4 of his last 4. After 2 games where he was really ramping those minutes back up, coming back. He's been back 6 games now, but needed a couple games to get his minutes back up. In the last 4, 11.5 rebounds per game in that time frame. Like I said, over in all 4 of them. Also at 24 points per game. If I was going to do a combo, I would take the points. It's gone up a bit. It was opened at 21.5. That was a beautiful number. 22.5 for whatever reason is a little bit closer to the edge and takes away that gap for me. But versus Indy last season, this is the type of player I love to target against the Pacers. If you're really good in transition and you're a versatile, like small forward-ish type player, like Josh Hart rebounds is a gold mine against this team, because Miles Turner, decent rebounder. I'm not going to call him a good rebounder by any means. When he gets down there, it's him boxing out the center. And then you've got Pascal, who oftentimes is also guarding people smaller than him, might not be as close to the basket. So yeah, I love Scotty in this one. Last year, 12 rebounds per game. At all 3, he had 12 against this team. The only thing that I don't love is the assists, and I don't even mind that because the Pacers are not as good as they were last year, limiting assists. But I think Scotty's going to be getting out in transition, getting boards, and going. So I love the boards more than anything.
No, yeah, I definitely like two of the three legs. I think the cat would make me nervous in terms of rebounds. I think, I see that total on the move for this Magic Knicks game, and it could just be like a total rock fight. Or it could surprise you either way. I remember they were in the cup, I think the last game last year,
Hmm.
where it seemed like the Knicks were going to advance and they got smacked completely or something. It was just like very strange things happen sometimes when these teams go head to head in terms of the Knicks and Magic. So, I mean, you threw out Jokic for a minute, and like, why not put Jokic in there instead? I mean,
What's yeah, like
Warriors give
13
up the
boards.
most rebounds to centers. Draymond's probably not playing tonight, so
What's
uh,
what's he at? I think I was scared of like 14
no,
rebounds.
yeah, it's like minus 700 for him to have 10. But
Oh
I
yeah,
just checked it. You give Jokic 20 and 10 and the Nuggets to win tonight, minus 120. So
yep,
I think if you want a best bet that has to do with the game line, like I don't think the Nuggets losing at home, and Jokic has just destroyed the Warriors, especially when Draymond's not in there.
for sure. That Nuggets defense is so pitiful. I'm not ready to throw their money line on much, to be honest with you.
Aaron Gordon's back.
Okay, AG's back. That's true. Good call. Good call. Good call. Lots to look at tonight. Either way, I'm not afraid of Cat. Like I said, I think he trumps any sort of defense you can throw at him, and that's why I'm not really looking even at something like assists for Brunson or points anywhere, because I do think this game ends at about 210, 215 in that range. So I'm scared of that stuff, but the rebounds should be available even at a slow pace. One thing I did make sure of, if you look at Cat against the bottom 10 teams in terms of their pace this season, over his rebounds in 5 of 6. I don't know how strong of a correlation there is, but at least sort of defends against the idea that there's not going to be enough possessions for him to get 12 boards or at least 10 boards tonight. So that's all the time we have for you, though, in best bets. Lots to talk about. As you can see, we're still going on with debate about this slate tonight. So definitely make sure to check out Play of Props, which we have up in a separate episode, by subscribing to that page and not missing out on anything. Until we see you next, happy betting.